Hello, everybody. We're going to be starting the presentation in just 2 minutes. So we will be coming back on at exactly 1:30. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Today we have a presentation for you entitled Wellness Policy Basics. And we're doing this in a different fashion than we've done for any other presentation. We have some folks here for the presentation who are in room 15 at the New Hampshire Department of Education. And then we also have quite a number of people who are online. What we want to do today is, if you haven't already, number one, mute your phones. I think we probably muted everybody's phone for them, but if we have not, then if you could mute your phone. To unmute your phone, there was instruction when you called in today for this particular presentation, and just follow that instruction. Wellness Policy Basics was something that was put together by a group of individuals. And this group of individuals has been working together for probably, I don't know, probably 2-3 years now. And first, the Healthier U.S. School Challenge realm, and now we've kind of morphed ourselves more to the wellness, school wellness realm of things. And we call ourselves an interagency work group because of the fact that we come from different agencies. We have Robin Peters from UNH Cooperative Extension. We have Debbie Luppold also from UNH Cooperative Extension. Then we have Scott Foster from the Department of Health and Human Services. Myself, Sherry White from the New Hampshire Department of Education. And we have Nancy Bradford Sisson, also from the New Hampshire Department of Education. So we all have come together to work on local wellness policies and provide information to everyone regarding the USDA local wellness policies. If you have any questions today, so I'm the one who has to give the ground rules. So if you have any questions today, for our online viewers, if you could please write all of your questions into the chat box. And there is a chat box that is on the on your computer screen for Zoom. Those we will periodically check throughout the presentation, and we'll answer your questions as we can. For the participants here, we would ask that you please, if you do have a question, if you could please raise your hand. We will have to reiterate the question or say it again, and then hopefully be able to answer that question for you. Also, for the participants in room 15, there are certain things that I do need to tell you about. So there is no smoking here at the New Hampshire Department of Education in the building. If you would have to go out to smoke, we ask that you please do that outside. In the event that there is a fire alarm, we have to let you know that there is an exit, which is right outside of this room, to go to the outside. We have some goals that we have set up for today. And in order to really work on your local wellness policies, we have asked if everybody could bring their local wellness policy with them and have it available to you. If you don't, that's still okay, but it is a better idea to have your local wellness policy available to you so that you can refer to it as we go, because we're going to be talking about specific items that are needed to be in a local school wellness policy. So the goals for today, so at each August conference, the Cooperative Extension and the Department of Health and Human Services folks have very kindly come to our August conferences. And they have given a number, over the course of two or 3 years, have given a number of trainings in local wellness policy. And they have spoken a lot about basic information. And this actual presentation is the next step to what they have been doing in their trainings. If you haven't been to one of their trainings, that's still okay. You will gain a lot of information from this particular presentation. What we're going to do today is to provide some examples of goals, and we will have the participants possibly suggest others. Again, if you're online, please suggest some language to some goals that you may have through the chat box. If you're here in the audience, we would love to have you provide us with some language of goals that you have in your own local wellness policies. Then we have some entities that we work with called Residential Child Care Institutions, or RCCIs. And those entities are under the National School Lunch Program, and they also need to comply with the regulations regarding the local school wellness policy. And so for the purpose of this presentation, each day that an RCCI is in session and approved to serve the National School Lunch Program is recognized as a school day, and really that point will become more apparent as we go in the presentation. So, wellness policy rationale examples. So, in the state of New Hampshire, we have 178,292 students that are taught in our schools, our public schools. That's a lot of kids. And due to that, there's a lot of kids, therefore, that need to eat. And we serve a ton of meals to these students on an annual basis. And so schools and RCCIs, therefore, can influence eating and physical activity behaviors of all of those students. So it really is important to remember when thinking about physical activity and nutrition, that they both go hand in hand. Really, both of them together afford an individual good health. And that is good health in mind and body, which is why we're talking about it in the wellness realm today. And students who are physically active tend to have better grades, school attendance, memory, and classroom behaviors. These are all things that people have studied and have shown that there are benefits to being physically active in many different areas. But it just makes you feel better when you're physically active. So today, again, we're going to be talking about the goals that USDA requires that need to be found in local school wellness policies. And USDA has a list of those goals. And there are some things that are important that need to be said about writing goals. I don't know if anybody has ever worked with SMART goals before, but a lot of these points are found in SMART goals. So make them clear, make them measurable, make them attainable, keep it simple. So you don't want your goals to be complex. You don't want your goals to be complicated. Because when that happens, then it's that much harder to attain that particular goal. And so, as an example, we have cafeteria staff promote the fruit or veggie of the week every Tuesday. Pretty simple. That's what we're going to do. And it should be hopefully simple enough for the school or all schools within the SAU to be able to carry out that particular goal. So like I said, there are certain wellness policy categories that we're going to be talking about, and these are the categories that USDA requires to be found within a local school wellness policy. So this is the first group of categories: nutrition education, nutrition promotion, marketing of foods in schools and RCCI, food sold to students during the school day, foods provided but not sold to students during the school day. All of what we're going to be talking about today pretty much address these particular categories and the goals that need to be written into the local wellness policy to meet these particular categories. This is the final number of categories that are going to be discussed: physical activity, other school-based activities that promote school wellness, wellness policy leadership and accountability, wellness committee representation, notification to the public, and assessment of wellness policy implementation. These are also goals that are reviewed by our office. So the Bureau of Nutrition here at the Department of Education administers all of USDA's child nutrition programs, and through that administration, we are required to go out and review for compliance. And these are the things, these are for the area of local wellness policy, these are the categories that we're reviewing when we come in to do a review. Does anybody have any questions at this point? No. Let's just see if there's any chat box questions at this point. Yeah, the chat was in more.
It should be highlighted with orange.
Okay. Okay, great. So at this point, we have no questions. So we're going to continue. And Debbie Luppold is going to come and talk with you about nutrition education. Okay.
We'll look at the chat question first, though. The question is, will slides be available later?
Yes.
Yes. That was easy. So I'm going to talk about nutrition education. And I hope that some of you do have your wellness policy handy so you can actually see what did you write for a goal around nutrition education. And what we did with the slides going forward is we tried to pull some examples of language that you could put in your wellness policy that could be a nutrition education goal for your school. And you need at least one measurable goal in your plan. You can have more, but you need at least one. So the first one here is one example of what you could put in your policy. Depends on your school district, what grade you have, and you could modify that depending on the school that you're in. But this goal looks at having at least 3 age-appropriate nutrition education lessons using up-to-date nutrition information. That could be your goal for the year. It's pretty simple. It's easy to measure. As you do your wellness committee meetings, you can maybe have that as an agenda item. Has everybody done, who has done their nutrition education lesson already this year? What grades or what teachers? And by the end of the year, hopefully you'll have enough data collected where you can actually say that you, in fact, did 3 nutrition education lessons. That's just one example. Can you pull on the next one? This one says 2 nutrition education lessons were part of other lessons during the school year. So maybe that you don't have somebody dedicated who can go in and do nutrition education in the classroom. It may be part of the responsibility of the teacher. And so could have a nutrition education lesson as part of math or science, physical education, a variety of topics that are taught in the classroom. Again, just an example. And I think we have one more. Nutrition education can be provided to residents. So this particularly addresses the RCCI setting. However, it could be from your school as well that you provide materials to teachers. Teachers and staff at the school provide materials to parents. Or hold programs at the school that supply some nutrition education. One of the other things that I wanted to mention, again, as Sherry mentioned, keep it simple enough to be assessed at the end of the year so you can go back and look, did you actually achieve what you set out to do? Wanted to mention that all schools can become team nutrition schools. Team nutrition has a lot of curricula available for free that can be used to incorporate within the classroom setting, so an individual teacher can use it, or somebody special that goes into the classroom. And within cooperative extension, if your school has at least half of the school participants receiving free or reduced price meals, we can come in and do education for you, nutrition education for you. So that could be another option for some of the schools. That's all for this one. Are there any questions? Please put them in the chat box.
In addition to nutrition education, you also need to have nutrition promotion, which many of you may already be doing. It might be something as simple as putting up posters in the cafeteria. So you need at least one measurable goal. One example is, she's in hiding.
Go over to the Zoom.
We're almost back.
Share screen.
Yep. The PowerPoint should be down the bottom.
Hit the Zoom button down there, that should bring it back.
The PowerPoint on the desktop?
One moment, please. We're experiencing technical difficulties.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Maybe you can have the PowerPoint, Sharon, put it on the desktop.
Yeah, it's right on the desktop. You should be able to just pull up the.
It's weird how that happens.
There we go.
All right, we're back. Go ahead and click the first example. Okay, the SAU school district implements at least 2 evidence-based strategies from the Smarter Lunchroom movement to encourage selection and consumption of healthy food choices in the cafeteria. If your school is involved with the Healthier U.S. School Challenge and you've been accepted as bronze or silver or gold, you are required to be doing Smarter Lunchroom techniques. And even if you're not with Healthier U.S. School Challenge, it's still a good idea to use some of the Smarter Lunchroom techniques. And those can be found online if you just Google Smarter Lunchroom movement. Another measurable goal would be staff will model healthy eating behavior and physical activity behaviors by XXX. Is there anything any of you are doing in your schools where you're modeling healthy eating or with students? It might be something as simple as doing, once in a while, having lunch with the students and you're eating something healthy and you're eating the school lunch like they are. So that's pretty simple to do. Back to the Smarter Lunchroom movement, I just wanted to let you know, if you do qualify for our services, which means that 50% of your schools have free and reduced meals, at least 50% of the students, we could actually come in and help you learn some of the Smarter Lunchroom techniques and do the scorecard with you. Okay. Nancy.
All right, another area that's required to be addressed in your local wellness policy is marketing of foods in schools. And some of the language might be if your school or RCCI chooses to allow marketing of foods and or beverages, only foods and beverages that meet or exceed the USDA Smart Snack standards may be promoted. Smart Snack standards are the minimum standards. So some schools, and I'm not sure, I've seen RCCIs have stricter standards, but for marketing, some schools do have more strict standards. But marketing standards apply to the whole school campus. Okay, they don't apply just to the cafeteria or just to food service. We're talking the cafeteria, classrooms, hallways, gymnasiums, athletic fields, all areas of the campus that are accessible during the school day. Even if the vending machine is turned off during the school day, the front and the sides provide a graphic image that promotes whatever food or beverage that it's trying to sell. Large items such as scoreboards don't have to be replaced, but the marketing guidelines have to be taken into consideration when those items are replaced or updated. So you can have advertising, but you have to make sure that the advertising doesn't promote non-compliant items. So food sold to the students during the school day. So these are actually food and beverage items that you are selling. This does have to be addressed in your local wellness policy. Some sample language, foods and beverages provided by the school meals programs will meet or exceed the USDA nutrition standards for school meals. That's a pretty simple one. Some other language is that all food and beverages sold to students during the school day will meet or exceed Smart Snack standards. And there's a link to the Smart Snack standards. Again, Smart Snacks applies to the school campus, not just to food service, not just to the cafeteria. So all foods that are sold during the school day need to meet Smart Snacks. However, this doesn't include foods that's sold to adults. You know, we're not going in faculty lounges and looking at things, or within your culinary arts programs, unless the culinary arts program is selling meals to students. If they're just selling to the public, then that's different than if they're selling meals to students. If they're selling meals to students, then they have to meet the Smart Snack guidelines. And also, the same thing about food within your family and consumer science programs. Again, unless they are selling food or meals to students, the Smart Snacks wouldn't apply. You can to say something, Sherry? No? We were sharing this slide. The next slide is not foods that are sold, but foods that are provided to students during the day. So you don't have, some schools and RTCIs just choose to have Smart Snacks as the standard, whether it's sold or whether it's provided. But other schools or RTCIs just pick the wellness committee picks a different nutrition standard for that. And that is usually in the realm of celebrations, is where you typically find this language. Parents and teachers will be provided with a list of foods and beverages that meet the nutrition standards for classroom snacks and celebrations. Another example is food is not to be used as a reward or taken away as a punishment. The standard regarding food that is provided but not sold must be clearly communicated in your policy. And this last one about using food as a reward or a punishment, that one's important if you're interested in going as for one of the HUSC award levels, the Healthier U.S. School Challenge levels. That's something that you are going to have in your policy. I think that's somebody else next. I think it's Scott.
So I just wanted to thank those folks that actually swam through the parking lot to come today. We're going to get you back in canoes or some way that don't get you quite so soaking. So about 3 feet of water in the parking lot here. And thanks for those of you that have joined us online. So physical activity, again, is a fairly easy one. I think I'm a big fan of just taking something that you really are already doing and putting it in your wellness policy, as opposed to trying to, unless you're really adventurous, you know how that can be sometimes in schools. The example we have here is that classroom teachers will provide at least one physical activity break. We have minutes there. You don't necessarily have to specify the minutes. Especially during block scheduling periods, which are long 50 to an hour minute periods. That is just one example that you can use. The second example, which happens really in almost every school I've ever been in, is that those students, maybe up in the 7th and 8th, not so much, but the early grades will receive at least one recess per day that is, 20 minutes long. And in one of the things people usually talk about is like, well, what if it rains? Well, you can put that language in if you want. I don't think any of us are going to fault you if you don't go outside in the bad weather. But that really is pretty much up to you. And then as far as the RCCI example, opportunities to participate in physical activity will be promoted through flyers, signage, group meetings, and that's all fairly simple. You can stay there, that's fine. But one other thing about physical activity that's pretty easy, it doesn't have to be physical education. You don't have to have a separate physical education goal. But almost all of our PE teachers in the state provide, are active at least 50% or more of their classroom period, which is something you can also write in there as a goal, because we know from our surveys that everybody does that. So that's a fairly easy one too. So you could say that, during our PE periods, we're active at least half the time or more, and they all do that. So this is the second piece that I get to bring to you today. Then you get back to talking to the really smart women that I work with. So when it says other activities that promote student wellness, it literally is that. Like you can look at even your current policy and say, what's anything that we haven't talked about so far, and let's put that in there. A pretty popular one is around fundraising, especially with regards to, there's a lot of schools that are doing physical activity fundraisers now. Fun run and walks, and so we hold, you can say we hold this once a year, or we do this twice a year. And that's perfectly measurable. Your wellness people could say, yeah, we did it on September 30th, whatever, and that's done. You're checked off the list. Here it says that we're only going to do fundraising activities that encourage physical activity, and you can have your little fundraising sheet that shows we did that. You know, we only did things that were physically active. But again, an easier way to do it is almost to say we have one health fair per year. Check. You know, all you got to do is say when you did that. This is a more, adventurous one. I think we have Megan Bizzaro here from Goffstown, and I know that was something that a lot of people have talked about doing. Is like, how long do children really have to eat once they sit down? So that's just an example of something you could write in there. It's not included in any other category, but it's something that you can do here. And for the RCCI folks, again, as appropriate, schools and RCCIs will support efforts to maintain a healthy lifestyle. I think I would probably go a little bit, just a little bit more specific on maybe one or two things that you would do so that you can measure it, because it's a little foggy. It'll pass because you can just list your things underneath that you've done, but you want to make it easy for yourself. I think that's one thing we're all trying to say, is just keep it really simple so that you can just literally, in your wellness policy meetings, you could just say, we did that, check, and here's what we did. And now I get to turn it over to the lovely Sherry White.
Actually, it's going to be Nancy, but
The lovely Nancy Escher.
actually, Scott just gave me a good point in time to talk with you a little bit about the attachments that went to the folks that are viewing online, and then we handed these out when you came in today too. When Scott mentioned check, the group created a checklist that can be used so that you can do your own small assessment of the items that are in your local wellness policy that are regulatory based. And so we would urge you to use this checklist to read your policy, use the checklist, and that way you'll know where you have holes in your own policy. So this is a very helpful tool. The other piece that USDA has as a regulation that was a newer piece is what's called a triennial assessment. And for the assessment, Scott, thank you very much, has done a great job in putting together a triennial assessment tracking form. Now, the paper form of it does not do it justice because there are pull-down boxes on the far right-hand side of this form, and so you can make choices on it, but just for the purposes of the folks who are here at the department, I wanted to just pull this out so that you had something just to take a look at in basic, so that when you go back to your computers, it was emailed to you and you can pull it up and then play with it, okay?
And if it malfunctions, I am directly responsible. So
yes, Scott.
This is malfunction.
Yes, Scott is responsible for the malfunctions. Yeah. Yes. We have a question in the chat box.
Yes, she's getting there. I mouse track that. We're chasing the chat box.
Oh, there we go. Chat. Oh, just go down. Now go down. Okay. Shake. Yep. Oh, yeah. All righty. So this was a comment
from someone. It said, it was awesome to have a UNH extension person go over our policy against the checklist with us for different eyes to take a look at it. And that really is a good point. So Nancy and I, we often say when we stand up here and do a presentation, it's like, you know, you guys, most of you guys see us all the time. And it's like seeing your mother or your father. But when somebody else comes in to do the presentation and add in their own comments and their own thoughts about the particular topic, it really does, you know, give a different set of eyes, different set of perception on the topic. So that's a really good point. So thank you very much for bringing that up.
And also, when we go out and do reviews, we use this checklist. So we take your written policy and just go right down through here and check. And those of you who are used to having administrative reviews, you know, because this stuff is in regulation now, as of the final rule, that means corrective action. Since it's pretty black and white there. So the next area that is required is you have to address leadership and accountability. So you need to have the title of the person responsible for implementation. And most wellness, most food service people are really glad to have this addressed in there because it takes it off of wellness belongs to food service. You know, wellness belongs to the whole school environment. And so you need to have the title. Some sample language, one or more school officials, for example, the school principal, who have the authority and responsibility to ensure each school complies with the policy, will be responsible for the wellness policy. And I'm telling you, what I've observed, once the principal is actually named to be the person responsible for it, things start changing a little bit in different areas of the school than did previously. The designated position for oversight of the local wellness policy to ensure compliance is blank. You don't have to give the name, just give the title of the job responsibility of who's going to ensure compliance. So, Robin?
I think Robin is required to be on everyone's wellness team, correct? Is that the way?
Oh, yes, correct, Scott. And I bring you along for nothing. Okay, I'm talking about wellness committee representation. The standard below is required. The FAU school district RCCI invites parents, students/residents, school food representatives, PE teachers, school RCCI health professionals, school RCCI board members, school RCCI administrators, and members of the general public to participate in the development, implementation, review, and update of the local wellness policy. So in other words, you want to have a wellness committee with a well-rounded group of people that are familiar with school wellness. And I hear a lot of feedback from different wellness committees that, well, we can't get them to come to our meeting. So the requirement is that at least they're invited. We understand that they might not be able to come, but at least reach out and invite them. And then once you have the committee, make sure they're part of the process, that they're actually helping with the development, implementation, review, and update, that they're not just sitting there and not really being part of a committee. Make sure they're active members.
To go along with what Robin just said, I mean, I guess I would recommend if you send out an email to staff at the school, you might keep a copy of that. So you show that, yes, we invited a number of people to participate. When you have a meeting, you might collect attendance so that then it shows who actually came to the meetings. But that way it shows that you've tried, you know, to invite others. Notification to the public. So again, this is something that you're required to do. And what I want to share is this group has reviewed a number of wellness policies, and sometimes it's very difficult to find your school's wellness policy. It might be online, but boy, it might take a half an hour for us to actually find it. And so I'm here to say, try to make it easy to find. So post the most current version. We've also had some situations where somehow the new version didn't get posted and it's a version back from 2008. That's the most recent thing that you can find online. So it's really to find a place on the school's website that's easy to find where you can post your policy so that everybody can see it. And you want to make sure that, which I think is the next, no, it's not the next one, but that parents know where the policy is going to be posted, where on the website. So you might include that in the handbook if your school has one, but making sure that it's there and it's really easy to find. In your policy, you want to actually indicate that in writing, what you plan to do in your school. So you may have a statement that says our policy will be posted to the school's website, put your school's website in there. Or if your school doesn't have a website, although most I think do, you might say that a copy will be in the front office and a copy will be put, in the student handbook, whatever, however you want to do that. So assessing your wellness policy. So as we've gone along, we've talked about goals, and we also have the form that you could use to track how things are progressing. You can use all of that to come up with your assessment of your wellness policy. Now, you can do this on a yearly basis. The requirement says you have to compare, you have to have an assessment of your policy every 3 years. If you have a list of your goals, whether you've achieved them every year, you keep all those notes together. When year 3 comes up, you have most of your assessment already done for you, part of it anyways. So you do need to review your policy at least every 3 years with recommendations that go forward to the school board or however they do, however that happens in your school. And again, you have to make that available to the public. So the assessment of how things were implemented in the school, again, needs to be made available. So you need to come up with some language that you can put in writing that shows the general public where they can actually find that information. Yes.
Also, I often see,
Why don't you come up here so people can hear you?
Public notification part, they'll say, well, it was reported at the school board and it's in the school board minutes. And that's not really a notification to the public, because the public is, you have some members of the public who read those minutes religiously, but that's really not notifying the public by just having it in the school board minutes.
Okay, continuing along the same subject of assessment of the wellness policy implementation, it's a good idea to have your local wellness policy compared to a model wellness policy. And the policy that is approved is the the Alliance for a Healthier Generation model policy. And you can find that on their website. If you just Google Alliance for a Healthier Generation model policy, it'll pop right up. We also have it on our Healthy Schools New Hampshire website through extension. And then there's another tool called WellSat 2, where you can go online and it asks you a series of questions and you answer the questions, and then it will, you'll get a report popped out. And that is something that Cooperative Extension can help you with also, is the WellSat tool. And you can record all of this on the triennial assessment tracking form that Scott has created. Okay. And again, using the triennial assessment form, you can document your progress made in attaining goals of the wellness policy. So identified goals are reviewed at each wellness committee meeting and progress is noted. A yearly summary along with meeting minutes are posted on the school's website. So again, you want to make sure that you're documenting what you're doing. So much of this stuff people are already doing, but if it's not written, you didn't do it. So it's really important to keep track using some of these tools that we've provided.
All right, so just to give you a summary of what we went through today. Wellness policy basics. Within wellness policy basics is the need for the provision of certain goals to be placed into your local school wellness policy. And we gave you today some examples of, we gave you the goals, what USDA says are those goals, and we gave you some simple language to possibly use as an example for some of those goals. That does not mean that you have to use what we have in this particular presentation. It's just an example. And then USDA also requires a triennial assessment, or every 3 years, you'll need to go through an assessment of the activities, really, that you have done within each of those goals. And we've given you 2 tools. The first was the checklist to ensure that all of your goals are there, at least talked about. The second is to help you out with that 3-year assessment. And one of the things that I do want to mention too, that Scott, when he was creating this form, had mentioned to us, which I thought was a great idea, was that whoever is the head of the, or anybody designated, of the local school wellness group should keep this triennial assessment tracking form on their computer somewhere, because as you go and as you do your activities throughout those 3 years, you can just continually put the information into this assessment tracking form, and then boom, at the end, it's all done. So I want to thank Scott for definitely bringing that up. And so really that is what we wanted to present to you today as the next step in our journey on this local school wellness policy piece. So does anybody have any?
And one thing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, sure, but my impression is that, again, like, because we do this for our federal grants too, it's like, because you have a goal doesn't mean that you have to absolutely achieve the goal. So, you know, for example, let's say you're going to have a health fair and it snows like heck that day, you know, say it like most of this winter, and you cannot have that. So you put, well, we didn't have it. This is why we didn't have it. And then that goal can stay. And if that's the impression that I mean, there may be times when you just don't achieve that goal, but as long as you're keeping track of why that is.
Well, at some point in time, you probably will achieve it.
Right.
So it's probably a snow date, because there's a lot of people out there who were saying, oh, I really wanted to go to the health fair.
Right.
So you're going to.
I was one of those. I really wanted to.
Did you?
Yeah.
Awesome. So at some point in time, you will achieve it, but to keep track, absolutely, and to keep track of your activities and what's happening with those activities, absolutely. I think that, and also, I think Scott's point was well taken, because not all goals are going to end up being successful in the end, right? So again, it's great to track what happens with those particular goals, tweak possibly, if you want to do it again, tweak it now that you have the history about what happened, and then possibly offer it again only a little bit with a few changes, and then have it be successful in the end. So I think that the tracking tool is really a great historical piece as well, to keep that historical information regarding what was happening with all of your activities to meet those goals that are in your local wellness policy. Megan?
Are the goals yearly, if you determine yearly, or are they for 3 years? Because you're talking about putting a goal into policy. The policy is not revamped possibly every 3 years, which quite honestly, I don't think school boards are going to be excited about having to renew their policy every 3 years. Can this be written as in Goffstown, we have what are called regulations. We have the policy, which is the big picture, and then the regulation is the nitty-gritty of how it works, if you will, the goal.
Yep.
What kind of leniency do we have of that? Because all I'm hearing about is the goal being shown in policy.
Yep. So essentially, you need to have those characteristics that were up on the screen. They all need to be discussed, and you have to have a goal for each one of them. It's the activities within those goals that you're assessing. It's not the goal itself, it's that activity. So the activities, like you very rightly said, those are your working things. Your document, in your document, you have something that's already been approved by the school board, and you don't want to go back to the school board to change that every 3 years, right? So those remain. It's the activities that will constantly change under those goals. So what we're looking for is, how are you carrying out that goal? What is the activity?
So, for example, under nutrition promotion, the goal would be, you don't want it to be specific in the policy because otherwise you're going to have to go back. The goal would be nutrition promotion will be conducted in the school. And then your supporting documentation, if you will, your regulation would have an area of nutrition promotion, and it might say posters will be hung in the cafeteria. Is that what you're saying? Because if we say posters are going to be hung in the cafeteria in the policy over the next 3 years, then they're going to have to look at that policy every 3 years.
Yes.
What I have seen done in New Hampshire, and I have, when I've been out on review, and I've had somebody from NERO or USDA with me, and it has been acceptable that the policy actually refers to procedures, or what you're calling regulations, so that, yes, maybe you said nutrition promotion activities will be conducted annually or whatever per wellness procedures, and then you actually have another document that you might update, that the committee could update annually. That was it. Does that make sense?
That's the language. Make sure that you have the right language in there.
Yeah, but you know, in the policy that you still are recognizing, and that you still have a separate working, livable document that you're working, that you can be more specific, but you do not. Most places don't have to go to another board for procedures. They let the committee work on them. But in the policy, you still are going to you can refer out to another document. But just make sure you have that other document.
The other thing too is that you can have that language in, and it can rotate 3 years or even more, depending on what the USDA does, because you're just saying every year we're going to do 2 things. That year is just going to keep passing. It could be 6 years, you're still doing that same thing. So it's not that you necessarily have to change it after 3 years. You just have to assess it after 3 years.
Yeah.
That's a good question. So Megan, do you also post I guess what you call the regulations that go along with the policy?
Correct. And we go to our school board policies that, like, for example, we have one for meal accounts, so they have one of food service management, and then underneath it, they have the regulation of management of food.
So the general public can still see, they see your general statement in the policy, but then they also see the specifics of what you're doing.
Oh, so that's wonderful. All right, so we have some questions from online folks. The PowerPoint, we can provide the PowerPoint presentation to everybody, but the other thing is that we have a wonderful communication person here. She is actually, we're recording this particular presentation today, and we will be able to place that recorded presentation onto our website. And we'll let you know where that's going to be, so in the very near future. As far as, I also had seen another question in here about the triennial assessment tracking form. For everybody that had registered for this presentation today, I had sent out an email that had both the checklist and the triennial assessment form on it. So if you don't have that in email, please contact us. Yeah, we can, and I can send it out again. So, you know, that's not a problem at all. How do I, okay, so I think we've gotten all the questions from the chat box. Debbie?
Yes, I have a question. So if a school has a basic wellness policy that is written that addresses all of the items from the final rule, how often do they have to update that policy if the rule doesn't change? So
If the regulation doesn't change?
Up with the, you know, the final rule and every, you know, all these pieces have to be included, and school actually has that.
Right.
Can they go with that policy until other things change?
So there may be three different things that I can think of. If the regulation doesn't change and you have met the requirements for all the policies, and you've gone through an ME, that's what we go through. I've got ME on the brain, I've been working on it too much. If you go through an administrative review, and the administrative review also notes that there are no additions or subtractions to your particular local wellness policy, then it should be good. However, I really think that it is best practice to go back and always read your local wellness policy, because the community changes, the community, the students that are there change, the needs change, and your old wellness policy may not work for you anymore. So it's a really good idea and really a best practice to review that wellness policy at least once a year. And it may be something that the wellness group within the SAU would like to do on a yearly basis.
Nancy's got a question here. When the district reports to the state, what does the state require, you know, as far as wellness policies for your review? I'm reading that right.
In other words, once the policy is in place, what, if anything, does the state check on? For USDA purposes, there are regulations that we are required to review when we come out to do the review. This local wellness policy checklist that we sent out has those. We created this and then we vetted it through USDA. And so through that process, we are confident that all of the pieces, the regulatory pieces that need to be met in a local wellness policy are on this checklist. And so that's one of the things that you could definitely do to ensure that everything's in your policy. And those are the things actually in that checklist that the state checks on as well. Donna.
For the person who's responsible for the implementation at each school,
Mm-hmm.
do we have to have a person at each school, or can it be one different person that's responsible to oversee all of that?
We typically do the wellness policy as a SAU policy. So we do recognize that there are some multi-districts out there that have school-based wellness policies. So really, in our eyes, it would be the person at the, at the SAU level who's the champion for this entire wellness policy. But it also could be due to the setup of the particular SAU that there's somebody at the school. Typically what happens is there is one wellness group that is developed, and each school has a representation on that wellness group. And then that person who's on the wellness group can bring the information back to each school. So that's typically the way that it works. And it works, it seems to work really well that way. I don't know if, Nancy, you have any other ideas on that, but.
Well, this is New Hampshire, and everybody does it their own way. When we go in, we ask, who can I ask the wellness questions for? And when we're looking at compliance with the fundraiser regulations and the exempt fundraisers, and we ask, who's tracking it? Can I see the log and so forth? So it would just be however that SAU has set it up. There's no one right or wrong way as long as someone's doing it.
I do like Nancy's wording about, you can do that at an SAU level, that the principal of each school is going to be responsible, because then at that point you do see some change, like there is some ownership. Whereas if you just say that, the person on the wellness committee is going to be that person, that could be anyone, probably going to be you. And that's the whole point that USDA is trying to get away from, is have it not all fall on school food service, have somebody else that has a higher level of authority try to take some ownership.
And usually when principals get in charge of the fundraiser thing, they cut out all food fundraisers.
It's a lot.
Any more questions?
I have one. The form that Scott had made, the triennial assessment tracking form that you said has the pull-down boxes, since we just have the document, obviously there's no pull-down boxes, where is this form located that we could use it with the pull-down boxes?
So everyone who registered, I sent out 2 emails today to everybody who registered, and attached to one of the emails was both the checklist and the triennial assessment form. Yes.
No, I wanted to just, right. I just wanted to mention though too that we haven't even piloted this thing yet. I mean, we put it together and Sherry's looked at it. So if you're seeing something, you'll have my information, let's fix it, or you can fix it. It's a Word document. If somebody knows tables, they can move it around. It's not meant to be the end all. We just wanted to give you something, because I don't feel like there's a lot out there right now for this 3-year piece. And if it was me, I'd want to have something easy that I could just drop down and say it's completed, we haven't done it yet, and put some little notes in there. Because we're not trying to make it difficult. We understand that wellness committees are doing a second job. You're already doing your day gig plus more in food service. So we're just trying to make it easy. So if you're finding it doesn't work well, just let me know. We'll fix it. Yeah.
I will say too that, yeah, this is definitely a working document for the group. Thank you. This particular one has not been vetted by USDA. We have not put this in front of them. So, but it's still a very useful tool to have. There's no regulatory pieces on there, except it does list the goals. So, any other questions? All right. Whoop, Nancy.
Did anybody bring their wellness policies that might have some different language than we suggested in any of those areas? I'd just be interested in hearing it.
I did bring ours.
All right.
I'm very, very broad.
Okay.
I don't know if there's anything useful.
Well, let's hear a goal for nutrition education.
No.
We're putting her on the spot.
I know. Or any goals for any of the areas that were mentioned.
We just had our administrative review. And wellness was actually, I think, the most documented thing.
Yeah, great.
There really is no goal.
There's not any goals. Okay.
That's not uncommon though.
No.
Yeah.
We looked at 83 policies, and this is new for everyone. That's new rules. So I'm not expecting that any of you would have that.
Well, the situation we had is our committee presented and policy committee did not, want the policy to be that detailed, following through the other district policies, just keeping it more broad, and so we don't have to keep going back and, changing it and whatnot. So then we asked about, the other piece of it, is that going to be a procedural piece that we're able to implement? So that's what we're in the process of doing right now. So, so I, question similar to Megan's is how does that piece all work, where it's not really stated in the policy, but it's more other procedural.
And I do want to acknowledge that. Thank you for bringing that up. So in the policy world, there are some SAUs who do a very broad policy like that. And then that gets put forth through the GELCAR process and then is set in place. And then, as you said, an additional piece to that is often a procedural piece that does talk about more detail. There are SAUs that are set up that way, that do that particular thing. It's just for us, for the making things public thing, the regulation that USDA has, that procedural piece plus the other piece, both those things together really do need to be out in the public eye. So both of them together. So thanks for bringing that up. Any other questions? Doesn't look like we have any more chat box questions either. Okay, great. Well, thank you all very much for coming. Thank you all for being online with us today. And I wish everybody a safe travel.